Hello there, everybody. Is after long time. Mohsen Qureshi is with me. We used to do the program called Mindset. It's got busy. Obviously, he does understand what's happening in the whole over the world, and he's actually asked me. He wants to put his point of view across. There's a lot of his friends and this Palestine movement. He has a lot of information, like everybody else has. So he wants to put his point of view across, and that's obviously the current affairs now these days. So to Mohsen, I'll bring you in, and you give your piece, what you think, what's happening here. Thank you.
Look, thank you, Fame. I just want to start by saying thank you to a lot of people that we come across our mindset program. It's been a couple of years since we've done it, but we still get a lot of people approaching me, asking why we've stopped, saying they enjoyed it. We had a very diverse background, and I know you've been very busy. I've been very busy, but we thought it's something that it's worth talking about. A lot of people will come often about this situation, and I know recently things have happened again. And I think, again, because of the diverse background, it's good for us to kind of share a bit of information. We never come here claiming that we have all the answers or we're correct 100%. Previously, we spoke about when there was the Black Lives Matter movement. There was various opinions then. Even when there was COVID, various opinions then. So we're just here to give a certain perspective. We're not here to say we're right or 100%, but it's more we want to try and educate people because there's a lot that's gone on. And it's not just started from October the 7th. This has been going on for a very, very long time. So I thought it's important just to kind of get the awareness out there, and that's the main thing, raise some awareness. And if people can take away something from after we've done this program that might help them, benefit them, encourage them to do something good or right, then that's what we're here for. Um, One of the things,
Most,
Fame, I wanted to, sorry, go ahead.
most obviously, me a little bit the old school. Obviously, been watching what's happening, especially in Palestine. Uh,
Mm,
you, a young boy, obviously you meet a lot of people,
yeah,
and you probably do know their sentiment. So, if you want to describe this dispute, is a lot better. If there's any
yeah,
question coming to my mind, I will ask you. So, you tell me what is really happening in Palestine.
mhm,
How many thousands of thousands children getting killed by the Israeli regime, and
yeah,
nobody's really uh, turning the eye. Especially, I know there's a big protest going in West, but the whole Middle East is totally quiet. So I
yeah.
want you to put your point to that.
No. Thank you, Fame. I work with people of various ages, and I work with a lot of teenage people as well, and a lot of them are quite upset, angered, frustrated, especially when they see the videos. And recently, a lot more has happened as a response by the Israelis. It all starts the British are the ones who gave the Palestinians land to someone else. So we know what happened with Hitler, the way the treatment of the Jews in Europe, and they were given a safe home and a safe plane, but in somebody else's land. In 1948, it became two states, even though the indigenous people, weren't necessarily happy. But historically, in that land, it's important for Jews, Muslims, and Christians, and they have lived together peacefully. I think where the difference is there's Judaism, but then there's also Zionism. And later on in the show, we'll address that a little bit as well, because I've got some quotes from a rabbi from New York. And over time, what's frustrating a lot of people is there was a two-state solution, but then bit by bit, illegally, Israel started to occupy more and more of the Palestinians' lands. And they get funding from the USA. Billions of dollars come from America to support Israel and its movement. But then education is free there. They can join the army. They invite people to come from different parts of the world to live there, and they give them a home. But unfortunately, it's at the detriment of the Palestinian people who have lived there and who have had families there for centuries. And now, currently, there's only two small parts of Palestine. One is the West Bank, which is its infractions and it's for all faiths to use. But if you are a non-Jew, you cannot walk on certain parts, you cannot travel in certain areas. There's multiple checkpoints. And the other part is the Gaza Strip. So the Gaza Strip is 25 miles by 7 miles. So it's a very small piece of land. It's got over 2 million people in there currently. Half of the population is classed as a child, so it's very, very young. It is one of the most highest unemployment rate places in the whole world. On one side, there is Egypt, which has got a blockade, and they don't very, very rarely allow people to go through. On the other side is the Mediterranean Sea, and then everything else is Israel. The Gaza Strip has been defined as the world's most densely populated area and an open air prison. Currently, and for many years, food, water cannot go in, people cannot give aid to support, electricity isn't there, there's no hope, there's no food, there's no money, there's no future. And unfortunately, a lot of the world turns a blind eye. I've seen recently protests in Poland, in South Korea. Ireland's always been a great advocate for the Palestinian movement. And we know there's been deaths on both sides recently, and both sides and both faiths, religions do condemn innocent people dying. But, and again, we'll get into that as well in a little bit of time. But the current thing is, this is what frustrates and upsets a lot of people, that yes, Hamas is different and the Palestinian people are different. Hamas has done an attack, but the people suffering are now the Palestinian people who have already suffered for 75 plus years. There was a lady who went on Grace Blakely. She went on Piers Morgan's show. So she is a journalist for the UK. She has journalists who work in Palestine. She knows people there who work for humanitarian agencies. And she goes, since 2008, about 6,000 plus um, Palestinians have been killed by IDF soldiers. So none of them things have been reported, but now something's happened here. Hamas, yep, have attacked, and it's a global news. And then we've got Rishi Sunak who's going down to meet Benjamin Netanyahu and saying our sides with you. But one of the main reasons for him when we started this program years ago was to give a British Asian perspective. So again, that is what I'm here trying to deliver through the conversations, through youngsters, through elders. This is kind of our perspective of why we feel this way, because the world seems to turn a blind eye on one situation, but then on another situation where a similar thing's happening, because it's towards the Palestinians, there never seems to be any form of justice.
Right. Listen, the question, that's a good thing to really mention. He wants to give the prospect of a youth. I'm just trying to highlight you because I'm also very socially active. I've been talking a lot of Middle East peoples. I was talking to somebody from Austria, right? This of peoples are really, really very upset, and they really want these things to be stopped and really try to sort the problem out. But the governments, like British government, I totally don't understand. Either they don't understand the youth sentiment, either the Western, whichever government I heard about Austria, they said they cannot have a protest. But over 100,000 people came in Austria. They could not stop it. In the UK, I heard some people were really cannot really hold the Palestine flag, and police was kind of a little bit manhandling them. I totally don't understand. We live in UK. We says we're the champion of human rights, and it's first time in my life I've
Yeah.
been told in UK you can't carry the flag of
Mm.
Palestine by design. Obviously, after the big criticism came in there, and they a little bit backtrack it.
Mhm.
Why? I cannot understand why the governments uh, they're not listening to the people's sentiment. Can you have any idea? I know you're a professional person. You
Mhm.
have your professional works to do. Obviously, in the work, you have a specific kind of protocol to follow. What can
Yeah.
you say? What cannot you say? But there is something in between the line is really shocking me. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I'm seeing it as well, Fame, if I'm being honest. I guess I'm fortunate to an extent that when we're at work, I can have discussions with certain people. A lot of them is trying to just educate and, help the youth understand. It's always a balance that we don't want the fire and the passion that the youth has to die out by closing it off and shutting them. But we also need to help them understand that there's a time and there's a place and there's a way and means of doing stuff. So for myself, work's work. I go there, I'm professional. We stay neutral, and that's fine. I've got nothing against that. I'll have private conversations if people want to pick my brains, whether that's staff or students. But then also we're fortunate enough that we can do things outside of our working life. So one of the things I encourage them is go to protest, raise some funds, give some charity, supporting aid, do the things that are actually going to, support the people and help the people that are there. Um, we are fortunate in a country that we can do protests, but it would be a real shame if they are trying to push back, because in my opinion the only thing that will happen is people will just start pushing back as well then. the further they're trying to restrict, if they're going to try to restrict people's freedoms. I think it is in France that they banned people from putting the flags in. There may be certain other countries, but the thing I've also realized recently is more and more of the world are actually supporting Palestine now. You'll see it at the football matches, you'll see in athletic events when they're on the podium, they're holding the flags up.
Sorry to interrupt you. I seen some in UK as well, which is this is really surprised me
Right.
why they're doing that. I mean, really, to me, let me put my point of view across. Okay,
Mm.
UK always been the champion of you can have your point of view. That doesn't mean you breaking any law. That doesn't mean you some kind of a criminal who has a certain
Mhm.
thinking. And sometime when you debate, you can come to common agenda. But when
Yeah, yeah.
especially from the government side, throwing agenda back into you when you the human rights champions, this is really worrying me. It's over to
It's,
you. Thank you.
I know there's quite a few protests scheduled up in our country today. I know the last big one that was in London, Jeremy Corbyn was present there. And to be fair, he's always been an advocate of the Palestinians, as have the Irish. I've seen a lot of athletes and footballers showing their support. I shared a quote myself from Eric Cantona the other day, again, being very balanced, being fair. So I've noticed more and more people speaking up. Even, like I said, Piers Morgan, to be fair to him, I don't agree with everything he has to say, but he's invited a lot of people who are pro Palestinian on. Mohammed Hijab's been there. The Palestinian ambassador to the UK has been on. So I'm seeing more and more platforms where people can speak, and it is a bit more of a balance rather than the mainstream who are very pro Israeli. At least there are some avenues now where people can be pro Palestinian as well. In terms of where it's coming from the top, you know, and I know, Fame, we've had family members who've worked at the highest level in politics. You're very, mashallah, you're very high up in PTI in the UK as well. I know you're doing a lot of work for Imran Khan. We know when it comes to the global politics, there is always kind of an agenda, and the mainstream public will not know it. We will get told certain information to try and get backing of the agenda, but the people at top may have different motives, they may have different narratives. Just to give a basic example, I guess, for the our listeners out here, with the Ukraine and Russia war, things could have been resolved in 2 weeks. There was a peace deal there, there was a peace deal ready. Funnily enough, it was our very own Boris Johnson who flew there and said to Zelensky not to take the peace deal, so things could have been resolved. I don't know all the details, but that's something that I heard. It was on a podcast with Patrick Bet David, where a former US colonel was the one. And check it out if you want, but it was very interesting, his perspective and his point of view. So in the forefront, what we get told may be something different, but behind the scenes there may be more to it. But the country's leaders or the politicians may necessarily be having their own kind of agendas. And again, that's what gets frustrating a lot for the public, that we now live in an era where it is social media, we can get different views. It's not just what the newspapers are going to tell us or the mainstream media. And all we're asking for, I guess, is to be fair. And when it comes to something like this, a lot of people are passionate. You know, when you see the videos of how these people are treated, it angers people, it upsets people. You know, we're very fortunate in many, many ways. We won't be able to last a day in them conditions that they're in.
Most of my questions to you, I have a chance to really ask you. Obviously, you're meeting a lot of people.
Mhm.
What do you think the people's sentiment? Say, for example, if I says a ratio from 100, how do you categorize that? How many people who have this sentiment to resolve the issue? You must find some people's they are actually very stereotyped. So, if I want
Yeah,
you to give some figure, what do you think?
it, it's mixed fame because, you know, one of the reasons I wanted to do this was to raise awareness, because there's a lot of people, and I know people from various backgrounds. Alhamdulillah, I know people up and down the country and across the world, and it depends on what information they've received. So that's why I wanted to come on here and also to educate people and give them the history of why the Palestinians are in the position they're in, why groups will form out of frustration and respond and retaliate. There are also extremes on the other side, though, Fame, as well, where some want to eradicate everything and they don't want to coexist and stuff like that. But when you look historically, the Muslims, Jews, and Christians have always lived together. Jerusalem is holy to them all. Them lands are holy to them all. Like, you know, one of my favorite stories I like is when Umar ibn al-Khattab took over Jerusalem and not a single fight ever took place. And I'd like to share it because there's loads of good takeaways from it, which I enjoy. And He was a caliph at the time. He was a leader, and they defeated the Persians and the Romans. And the archbishop at that time says, "Look, I'm happy to give you Jerusalem, but I'm only going to give it to the caliph." So when he came with his servant, and they agreed to take turns riding on, I think it was a camel. And by the time they got to the gates, Sophronius, the archbishop, was like, "Oh, which one's the leader?" He thought it was the one sat on top, and he's nodded down. And he goes, "You're the leader. Why are you walking?" And he goes, "Because we made an agreement that we're going to go 50-50, and it was his turn." And the archbishop said, "With people like you, with your morals, how can we ever defeat you?" And he gave him the keys. And he says, "Let's come for a walk. We'll go inside. We'll discuss terms." And the only thing he said, he goes, "Tell me about your religion." So Umar ibn Khattab is explaining to him, and he goes, "It sounds very similar to what we believe. There's a lot of similarities between the three religions." And he goes, "Oh, I want you to come to my church, and I want us to pray together." And he goes, "Sorry, I can't do that, because the first place I pray here, my people will create a mosque. And that is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is an important church for the Christians, and they gave the keys to Muslims. And even till this day, that same Muslim family have the responsibility of looking after that church, which they do." So then, when
Right.
they found an empty land, they just bear with me. They found an empty land. They did go and pray, and in that place, they made a mosque, and it is named after Umar ibn Khattab. He then said, what are your requirements? What do you want?" And he says, "All I want is the politicians to leave. They can take what they want, money, gold, and everything, and they need to go." He then says, "That's fine with the Romans. They come, they conquer, they do this, they set things on fire, they destroy stuff." He goes, "We don't want to do none of that. We're happy for people to live." He goes, "Take me to the Temple Mount," which again is religious to everyone. And he goes, "Oh, we've used it as a dumping ground for years." Umar himself got on his knees, started clearing everything, and all the companions and all the people did the same. And he asked, "Where are the Jewish population in the city?" And he goes, "Oh, we exiled them all, we killed them all." And Umar was the one who says to one of the former Jews who became a Muslim, he says to him, "Go and get 80 families. There needs to be prominent figures here as well." Even historically, Fane, Jews have thrived and lived in Muslim countries for many, many, many years. In Morocco, there's still a large population. In Iran, there's still a large population. In Egypt, they've always lived and felt safe in Muslim lands. What angers people is they were not safe in Europe. They were exiled from Europe. They came into the Muslim lands. They've always been looked after. But what's happened here is the people who they escaped from, they are now treating others like that, how they were treated at one point. A lot of people say it is an apartheid state, and it is. They are trying to ethnically cleanse them. This is what the issue is. This is what's angering people. And then I think from a bigger point of view, what angers the common person is the governments are not doing anything about it. People are turning a blind eye. Egypt are just on the border. They don't do anything about it either. They're helping with the blockade of Gaza. So it's not
Right.
just the English and the Americans, it's the Muslim countries as well, who unfortunately have been very, very disappointing in situations like these. It's everyone.
My questions to you, obviously, I want you to explain. Obviously, uh, you mentioned the Khalifa. My question is to you. Uh, there's two school of thought, especially in Israel,
Mhm.
uh, and they are actually separate. It's the Zionism and the Judaism.
Yeah.
He really wants to tell people. So obviously, you do come across with the youth, especially. I think it's the old school doesn't understand it. Some people have their bias, obviously my liking or your liking kind of a things. They turn the blind eyes. But I think his youth needs to know what is the really who's trying to drive all this norms where is really love, blood in their love, innocent children
Mm.
getting killed.
Yeah.
I think you need to explain that
Yeah, yeah,
to
of course.
me and the audience. Thank you.
Yeah. So Judaism and Zionism are different things. I've watched a
Oh,
clip recently. It's Rabbi Feldman. He's from New York. And I've watched his clips in the past as well. And even other recent days, he stood there speaking. He's wearing a Palestinian flag around his neck. And he's
yeah,
clarified to them. He goes, "Zionism is not Judaism. These lot have taken our religion and they're saying they're doing things in the name of our religion." He's explained that in Judaism, they are not allowed to have a homeland. They are not allowed to have a homeland. And he goes, the basic fundamentals of Judaism, the commandments that they got from Moses: thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill. And he goes, how can we then go and say this is our land when, first of all, it's in our book that we're not meant to have it in our scripture? And secondly, it's going against the basic covenants and the fundamentals that our religion was based on. So they live in America outside of Israel, the second largest area where the Jewish live is in America. And like I previously mentioned, they've lived in Muslim lands side by side for many, many years, and there's been no problem. And even now, till this day, there still is no problem. The Zionist movement is slightly different. So again, this happened afterwards. It was the British who made the Balfour Agreement. They were the ones who gave the Palestinian land to the Israelis. It wasn't theirs to give someone else's land to them.
Just 1 second. I know you're saying fastly. So the Judaism was actually based from the same land, and this new regime, you call it new school of thought like Zionism, they are also based of the land. Their ideology is totally against the Judaism. Why? Why is that? Why? Can you just really try to elaborate? I know you're trying to explain that to me.
Yeah, because the Jews themselves are the ones saying that these Zionists don't represent us. It's just like us sitting here and saying ISIS are Muslim, whatever they're doing, they're killing, they're murdering, they're doing whatever, they're doing it in the name of Islam. But actually, if you look into the fundamentals of Islam, they don't represent us. So the Jews know themselves that they are not meant to have their own homeland. That Zionists have their own agenda, have their own movement. They're the ones who have then been getting funding. They're the ones who have then been demolishing homes and slowly increasing it. And the thing that we need to be mindful of is in countries like ours, there are high Jewish populations. What we need to be mindful of is we don't go and treat them how we've been treated. Because in the past, Muslims have been tarnished and loads of people have had to come and condemn stuff when they haven't done anything wrong. And the last thing we want is innocent Jewish people who live in and around our country for people to start taking their anger and frustration out on them because first of all, they may not agree with the state of Israel. They could be like other people. And secondly, they're also innocent people in this side of the world. What's happening there hasn't got anything to do with them. So that's one thing I wanted to get clear. We've been victims of that, where this country has treated us differently, or a lot of people have, just because we're Muslims and something happened on the other side of the world. So we also need to be mindful and balance that there are many Jewish people that are against Zionism, and the Zionism
Yeah.
movement is different. And the Zionism movement is ethnically cleansing and saying, regardless whether you're Palestinian Christian, Palestinian Muslim, or you don't believe in anything at all, this land should only be for Jews. But the other Jews are also saying, actually, that's not what Judaism teaches. That is Zionism. So it's a form of extremism, I guess, is what I'm trying to explain. If there's a main difference.
But you're really saying every religion you go, you find some very extremist attitude. So you
Yeah.
can say really the extremist attitude as in Zionism, they're thinking they're superior to everybody. They really
Yeah.
try to undermine everything, and they try to kill as many people's thousand children who really walking in the
Mm.
street. So they are actually not doing any justice to the Jewish community.
Oh
They
no, of course.
actually they are actually putting Jewish in a difficult situation because when they're really killing so many peoples are actually we live in civilized countries. We have understand what right and what wrong. When we
Mm.
realize these guys are actually trying to create a problem because
Yeah,
of their extreme attitude.
of course.
So
And
that's
I
I
believe very in certain things, Fame. I believe very in certain things, but the very things, certain things which are in common with both Abrahamic religions, we both believe in Moses, Musa, Islam, even with the Christians. The reasons why Palestine is holy to us is because Masjid al-Aqsa is the Temple of Solomon. They believe in, we believe in Sulaiman alayhi Islam. We believe in Isa alayhi Islam is big for the Christians there. We believe in Mary, Miriam. There's a chapter named after her in the Quran. So them lands are holy. There's so many prophets, peace be upon them all, that were born there, raised there, lived there, passed there. You know, it's blessed lands. Even the night of Mirage, where a prophet, peace be upon him, went through the heavens. He went through where the Dome of the Rock is. I know we had a conversation previously off air, and we wanted to explain this as well. When Masjid al-Aqsa is a full complex, the actual Al-Aqsa Mosque is the one with the darker dome, and the blue one with the blue tiles outside in the golden dome is the Dome of the Rock. So, but that whole complex is Masjid al-Aqsa, and sometimes the mainstream media shows you an image of something else because we know they were trying to excavate under Masjid al-Aqsa as well previously. So there's always constant things going there, even
you
over.
sorry to interrupt you. What you're saying, they by design, they only showing the golden one. They try to hide the black dome because
That's
in their mind, they are actually confusing people. This is what we call a spin doctrine. They were doing that because initially that's the black dome where is actually the pass of Masjid Aqsa, where is the biggest place. Tomorrow, probably they're trying to brush somebody's eyes. Is the golden dome is the real one? So I think this is what you're trying to explain. If you wants to
Yeah,
elaborate,
yeah,
because you
that's
speak.
there's a whole complex there.
You speak slightly faster. So I repeat it because I'm thinking about the audience point of view. So you go through again. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a whole complex there which is called the Al-Aqsa complex. The one
Okay.
where the blue tiling and the golden dome is, that is known as the Dome of the Rock. I believe that is where the ascension took place, where our Prophet, peace be upon him, on the night of Miraj, went up to the seven heavens. The actual
Okay.
masjid is on the other side of the complex, which has a darker dome.
Yeah.
That and again, I've not looked at it properly, but in years, I think there were some original foundations underneath there, which is from the Temple of Suleiman, which was also holy to the Jewish faith. But again,
Okay.
that's a bit of old news. I'm trying to remember. The other thing we have to bear in mind is, apart from a religious point of view, there's always a political point of view. So the
Yeah.
reason why I think Israel is protected by America, by the UK, why they fund them, why they arm them, is strategic. So they are in the middle of the Middle East. All the oil is there. They've got a stronghold there. Israel are a nuclear power there. I know historically Iran and America have issues, but at least they've got an ally in that region. We
Yeah.
know they can influence Saudi Arabia. Unfortunately, the Saudis have sold out a very, very long time ago, even though they're a well, not a superpower. They've got a lot of money, they've got a lot of influence, but they're also buying arms off America, arms off England, and then using it to bomb Yemen. So we're not sitting here saying, oh, Jews are wrong or Zionists are wrong, when the Muslims have done something wrong. We're the first ones to say, actually, they've sold out and they've killed a lot of innocent people as well. And the way it's looking is, because within that
What?
region, the Americans, the West, other people want a stronghold. They've got a base there, and that's why a lot of the international community are scared to do something for him, is because of they are protected. Just imagine if one of the Muslim countries were to try and support Palestinians, the rest of the world, the UN, everybody will come down on them like a ton of bricks. So I think it's that fear factor which is preventing anyone else from even trying to support. I remember years ago, Fame, you probably remember better than me. I was quite young then, when there was a blockade then, and people were going in ships to try and give aid, and the Israelis
Yeah.
were flying over helicopters and people coming down. We saw videos of fights on them ships. So you can't even go and give aid there. Even now, recently, Fame, there was a discussion to stop to have a ceasefire, to stop it, so people can go in and give aid. The only one country that went against it was the US, and two countries chose not to vote, which was the UK and Russia.
It's really surprised me because I'm a British citizen myself. I mean, this type of a decisions uh, taken by the British government, have they really spoken that into Parliament, or is just Rishi Sunak is really go went? Did he took the rest of the people in confidence? The whole UK did this got a debate? What they're gonna do? They have a vote in there. Do you know anything about that before
The,
he
the,
went and that decision?
the only thing I've seen recently to do with Rishi Sunak is when he's gone there and he's met Netanyahu, and he says it clear as day that we are with you. They are supporting them 100%. He's gone straight away to visit them and to offer his support and whatever else they require. This has gone on
They,
for ages. Whether it was Sunak or not, it's not going to be any different as far as I'm concerned. And even
we,
then, like we just have to look at that. There's a history of this thing. There's a history of this. So
I
even if we look
totally
at the Iraq War, even if we look at the
I
Iraq War, there were many things said. There was a propaganda. People said there's weapons of mass destructions. They had some girl who was a female actor crying and sharing some horror stories. Then they went there. A million people have been killed. Then they've come back, and many years later, they're like, "Oh, sorry, there was no weapons of mass destruction," and they just did what they
most
wanted to do.
my question is all this history, all these things. Are we being a British Asian? Uh, do you think, or the lot of British, if it's Jeremy Corbyn is a big leader who's come out and talk about it, obviously thousands and thousands of people who actually did realize this is wrong happening. What's going on in social media days? Everybody knows this is open double standard here. I'm really thinking what's going on here? Is the open double standard? People are still
Yes.
killing people and taking a side. I'm really getting uh, really baffled here. What do you
Uh,
think?
Unfortunately, it's if we look at Jeremy Corbyn, his own party got rid of him because his views didn't align with the powers that be. So he's always been pro-Palestinian. He was also against the apartheid. So when South Africa, it was the same issue going on towards black people, he was against that too. And people were making
Uh,
out as if he's a crazy man back then as well. So if we, just
so
bear with. So the fact of the matter is, then he ran for leader, and all everyone did was, and the media did, was create a smear campaign against him. Even people who always vote Labour, I've heard him saying that, oh, we're voting Conservative just to go against Jeremy Corbyn. But that's just because the agenda that was pushed, and even if the public knew that would put them in a worse position, they still did it. Ultimately, when it comes to the government, regardless of what people say, it is not a democracy. And people may agree or disagree, but the people on top will ultimately do whatever they want to do, and the people on top will always have people above them.
exact, this is exactly my point. They
Mm.
are actually, if I say daytime robbery, you know, the people sit in the power. The directions come from either is uh, America, the direction come from even the Israeli lobbies. Uh,
Yeah.
they just dictate that, and they don't even take the sentiment of people who living in UK, right? And I'm really shocked. On the top of that is the biggest concern I have. Cam Starmer, the Labour Party leader, the type of things he's saying, that's really shocked me because to me, Labour always standing from the human rights prospect. Everywhere, if anything happen, they speak about it, and I feel always proud as in a British. Even the Tory, they speaks right, for the right things.
Hmm.
Obviously, Labour speaks a bit more, but Labour's leader can't stand up. Honestly, I'm really shocked. Um,
Even from me and from the conversations I have, the within recent years, people are more and more disjointed when it comes to the politicians, when it comes to the government. And I was touching on it a bit, so just please let me go into it. So when it came to the things like the Iraq War, we're told a certain thing, then it turns out to be something different, but the damage is done. Even when it comes to things like COVID, I know they put restrictions in place. Myself, other people, we still acted freely because we knew there's a bit more of an agenda going on. But I know many people who suffered financially, mentally, in many different ways because of the lockdown. Even post lockdown, kids socially haven't developed. They're many, many years behind. There may have been more to it. Even with the vaccination, we spoke openly. There were some people for it, some against it. We were very, very balanced. But then it turns out that the government in 10 Downing Street were having a party. So this is the thing, when we're constantly seeing things like this, when the truth eventually comes out, but the damage has already been done, this is why more and more people in the modern generation and the younger generation don't trust the government. And even when, and to add even further, if we're going to bring it back to the Palestinian conflict, if the Americans are giving billions and billions of dollars every year to Israel, Israel has free healthcare. Israel has free education all the way up to university level. They have free homes given to them. When they get there, they get money, grants given to them. So America are giving billions to Israel. But if you look at America, their tuition fees are the highest. They have to pay for their own healthcare. Their unemployment is increasing. Their drug use is increasing. Even then, there's more homelessness is increasing. So you're then neglecting your own country but then giving billions elsewhere, and they're living the life that you should actually be investing in your own. Even with our beliefs in Islam, your charity begins at home. So there's obviously a lot more to it, that if they're willing to ruin and let down their own people to fund and invest people on the other side of the world, there's got to be some reason behind it. We're never going to know the full truth. We're not here to throw out conspiracy theories, but something clearly doesn't make sense. And that's why more and more people of the younger generations, because the government don't actually support them or listen to them. Yes, we protest. Yes, we try to sponsor children and we do whatever we can to support, but that's making a tiny, tiny difference. If we want it to be a big change, it has to be led by leaders. It has to be led by people in power. It has to be led by people in control. There's only so much we can do. But again, the success and the aim we want is for ultimately the Palestinian people to be free. We don't want them living in apartheid. We don't want them being ethnically cleansed. We don't want them in the largest open air prison. And we're not Arab, we're not Palestinian, and all of the world though is trying to show support for them. But still, it's in my opinion, it's not enough. Something needs to be done. This has gone on for years and years and years, and now there's been an attack back by Hamas, and then unfortunately now what the Israelis are doing is punishment, but they're punishing everyone. They're carpet bombing all of the Gaza Strip. So there's loads of people who are innocent. Hospitals are being bombed. They're claiming it's not them. Hamas did a misfire. Then the Palestinians are responding saying, actually, somebody put a tweet up confirming it was them, and when they deleted the tweet. So again, we're hearing a lot of different things that even the Palestinians are kidnapping babies and beheading them and this, and it turns out all to be false news. We've seen this before with the Iraq War. We've seen it before. Now we'll see it again in the future. History repeats itself. It's nothing different. But the fact of the matter, we're doing what we can. But the people who are meant to be representing us, unfortunately, they're not representing us.
You're right. You're right. Honestly, what I'm thinking here now, my question, if I really wants to come in the end of program, unless you want to say something else,
No, no.
right? To me, now the genie is out of the bottle. People are in streets, right? Are we gonna let this brush in the carpet again and let a lot of Palestinians get killed? I think this is the time now. Everybody keep creating the pressure to resolve this issue once for all, which is suits both sides. Both sides needs to sit down and sort a workable solution
Mm.
rather than really oppressing and using every trick in the trade, like children's getting killed, all that, and then we find out there was all media hype or try to really get sympathy. I think people like these who doing that, they should be ashamed of themselves. And if they
Yeah.
are some kind of a leader, that means they are have the agenda to really not to solve problem out. They
Mm.
have the agenda to create a bit more. And to me, anybody like that, regardless is you, me, or Rishi Sunak, or Netanyahu, or anybody else, if they really doing this, they are actually this time on an age they are trying to make a people's food. When it's the social media, everything is out. I think we need to sort that out. We need to carry on this protest until they resolve the issue. What is your opinion on that? Thank you.
Yeah, even with my closing thoughts, it's hard to say because we're not Palestinian, we're not Arabs. But I'll mention what the Palestinian ambassador to the UK said when I watched his last one. He said the Palestinians and Hamas are different. He goes, from their point of view, they're happy to go back to the two-state solution. That's what was agreed in the first place, and they were happy with that.
Okay.
The issue is when all of the things have been taken by force, but all the people have been exiled, with the fact that they are living in a large open air prison. And even from an outside perspective, I think ultimately that is what people want. They want peace. They don't want innocent people dying regardless of who or what their belief is or where they're from. They want people to be able to be free. And if people are in a conflict, they want people to be able to deliver aid. They want people to be able to support them. What nobody likes is the fact that hospitals are being destroyed. Innocent people who've got nothing to do with it, who have suffered all their life, are suffering even more. I think the point is it's when's enough enough? And in our eyes, enough was enough 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And unfortunately, it still continues. And ultimately, like you said, it's we need to keep kind of protesting, keep trying to support. We want to make sure we're not going to cause further issues in this country and go against other people when they may be innocent. But ultimately, I think it does come down to leadership. And the point of leadership is it seems like it's a bit tricky and it's a bit difficult. Will it ever get better, or is it just going to be a stays that until all the Palestinians are ethnically cleansed? Is that the only time it will end? I hope it's not the case. May Allah protect and guide and serve our brothers and sisters in Palestine and give them everything they desire. But ultimately, what we want is all the restrictions to be lifted, them to be treated as human beings. People to be able to come and travel and go freely as they want. And like I've said, and I've given many examples historically, Jews have always lived perfectly fine under Muslim rule in Muslim lands and have succeeded and thrived in them lands as well.
No, no, I agree. I agree. I personally think it's time now. People are realizing you can't put things under the carpet now,
Yeah.
brush under the carpet. I think it's by the time the government of UK, They need to, because we are British. We demand our government to really stand on the right side, not really because you have some kind of understanding, somebody who can oppress anybody, who have the agenda to push because he's your friend, you want to do it. When your people's in UK, I don't know anybody, regardless who likes to be Palestini or they likes to be Israeli. Nobody wants, when I come across, nobody wants this type of violence in there. Everybody wants this to be resolved on a right manner, not in unjust manner. And I think this campaign we should really carry on. And especially thank you for you to, after
Thank you.
your professional duties, you got some time to give it to social media. And I hope you need to think about it. Certain occasions you come and really put your point of view across, because to me, uh, youth, I'm of the old school. I think if you remember a long time ago when we start the program, the mindset, the real thought of, because how the old school thinks, how's the youth. Obviously, you deal with a lot of youth. You youth yourself. I don't know how long you're gonna be youth yourself anyway, but you youth so far. So I think you need to come on sometime and do this program. I give you a prospect if you professionally allowed.
Yeah. No,
Anyway,
no.
anything you want to
We keep trying our best, and even if I'm not doing it on a social media level, I like to think we're giving good advice and good guidance and trying to create good people of good character on a day-to-day basis. And like I says, ultimately, what we want is peace. People have suffered enough. Enough's enough. The leaders need to do what the job is and actually, be the voice of the people and do the right thing. And given this cause, you don't need to be a Muslim or anything. You just need to have a decent heart and soul, and you can see that what's happened to the Palestinians for many years is wrong. So inshallah,
yeah.
inshallah, things will get
I,
better very soon.
I hope the things you said, they will prevail some kind of a sense. And I hope there's a lot of youth out there, or a lot of people who doesn't understand the this all this trouble.
Mm,
I think your prospect very clear. You really put some kind of a reality check there. In current affair, you put the reality check, and I hope uh, people will have some kind of learn out of it. We'll find out from the feedback. Thank you
yeah,
very much, Mohsen, to joining me.
thank you.
Hopefully, we'll do another program. Thank you.